Can we trust AI? Today we discuss the fictional footy match and the grok bikini trend. Following that, the end of teen social media? Why is the UK watching Australia? This is the Internet Seriously. Hello, I'm Lucian Taylor in Oxford, and as an engineer I use AI every day. You can tell that because I used AI to generate the title for this, which is Can We Trust AI? Today we discuss the fictional footy match and the grok bikini trend, which I think is a bit trivializing a very, very serious matter, particularly for women in this country. So I'm really interested in this discussion about the nuances around AI.
I'm Emily Taylor, and as a policy person, I'm interested in the way that policymakers grapple with a social issue. For example, how do we protect children in the social media environment? A really difficult issue to do. So do you do it as a ban, or do you continue with what we seem to be doing, which is just treating children as adults but littler? And actually there's a lot of unpacking to do on that. And yes, like Lucian, the grok AI ban, I think that this is in a role reversal for the Online Safety Act, this is its moment where it's actually seems to have come to the rescue to prevent the sort of embedded misogyny of some of these technical tools.
And I'm Nathan, also in Oxford, and I'll be sharing my thoughts on AI in general, grok, but also I guess my perspective as a parent of young kids who are asking me for social media and how we deal with that as parents.
I'm fascinated by that and those two angles that you've got, Nathan. But first of all, to summarise, it's all bans at the moment, because at the moment we've got AI involved in two bans. One that actually happened in November 25. The West Midlands Police recommended a total ban of away fans from the Europa League match between Aston Villa and a Tel Aviv team, and the reason giving was that the match was a high risk, citing intelligence of previous violence involving Maccabi fans, and the result, the ban was implemented. We've got an AI involvement here, which is what we call a phantom match. So the police have just admitted that they were referring to a key piece of evidence in their report to decide to implement this ban between West Ham and Tel Aviv. And a later investigation proved that the match never actually took place. It was Microsoft Copilot chatbot error, and the AI had hallucinated, or rather made up the fixture. So Emily, and we're going to talk about the grok potential ban, so another ban. But at the moment the UK government faces off against two of the most powerful forces in AI, from a hallucinated police report involving Microsoft's Copilot algorithm that triggered this diplomatic row, to a high-stakes legal war with Elon Musk's X company over deepfake, what the government are calling weapons of abuse, particularly their tools to nudify women, which is a very serious matter, and spicy mode, which this sounds fun, but it's causing deep harm and injury to people. Are we coming home to roost now? Are we at an inflection point with AI?
Well, let's talk about the football match, the ban first. That was a hugely controversial act. I remember the news stories at the time where the officials and the supporters from the football club, the Israeli football club concerned, were just completely baffled by the reasoning. And in the policy making circles, we talk about evidence-based policy. This is where we're supposed to be going, and this seems to be an example of hallucination-based policy. The match never existed. The report and the intelligence were made up, and of course we've all been using generative AI in work to help us do stuff. The quality of it is astonishing, I think, and I think part of it is that what you get from your prompts is such a confident response. You really do need to be very inquiring to go, are you sure? And somebody made a parallel with, it's like having a very over enthusiastic assistant who will never say to you, well, sorry, I don't know the answer to that one. And so they will kind of just bring up something. And so, but the context of this is, cuts to public services, resource constraints, having to make complicated decisions very quickly. And of course, mistakes happen. And because this is a new tool, everyone's like, aha, it's the tool.
Oh.
People do make mistakes, of course, but the consequences of this was a very big international embarrassment. The fans of a football team wrongly being accused of causing violence. And so it's a great big mess.
Nathan, Emily's talking about AI as, like a keen student in a class who wants to offer answers even if some of them aren't right.
Yes.
Making mistakes, bringing something up that may not have existed.
Yeah.
The police at the same time are moving towards AI more and more because they haven't got enough money for humans to do this. And they're using this now for live facial recognition of crowds, to scan crowds and identify members of the crowd who may be under football banning orders.
Yeah.
So, that all seems quite sensible, so that at scale they can do a lot of surveillance very quickly. More controversial, I think, is social media scraping, to try and identify on social media platforms whether gangs of footy fans are going there or not. But can you explain a bit about AI hallucinations? There's a bit of difference, isn't there, between a sort of somebody getting something a bit wrong and just making up a whole football match that hasn't actually happened.
Yeah, and that there's a couple of things really that's interesting about this is the fact that we trust what we receive from AI almost as gospel. And AI doesn't have all the answers, but as you said, what's interesting is if it doesn't have an answer or it can't find an answer, then it will just make something up. But it's presented to us, as you said, Emily, in a way that is almost fact.
Yeah.
And if you go back to how we all operated, where we would search for something on Google, you could quite often spot a dodgy site where you couldn't trust the content, but because fake or fictitious content is being sent to you in the same format as real content in the form of these chatbots, then it's really hard for people to discern between what they're receiving as truth and error. So it's
Emily,
I've got an example here. Sorry to interrupt, but just this morning I was actually in I was looking into the internet shutdown in Iran, which I hope we'll cover in a future event. And there's a brilliant report by Whisper Security looking at BGP, IPv4 and 6 interference and Starlink. And I sort of put it into a chatbot and said, can you give me some analysis of this? And they were like, yes, well, this is a sort of a prediction of something that hasn't actually happened. And I was like, excuse me, it has actually happened. Oh, sorry, yes, of course it has actually happened.
Emily, we've got law enforcement, public safety, police officers relying upon AI to make decisions that effectively impact on whole football teams and fans. You have the disaster with the Horizon scandal where, as Nathan was sort of alluding to, technology is just automatically believed, particularly by, perhaps judges and juries in that case, which automatically believe the technology because technology is very binary and it doesn't lie. People lost their lives or went to prison for many years because the technology is automatically believed. There are very few speeding cases where the speeded camera is doubted. Are we in a new era where the legal framework, the legal people have to look at this and think about this?
I think in a way, compared to the Horizon scandal where you've got lines of transactions in a ledger, that seem to be true. You know, where has this money gone? Well, the computer says this. That's a very simple sort of thing, and it's really hard to imagine that there might be a bug. And you've got this person who would say, I didn't do it, who are saying I didn't do it, and it took. But, you know, that's a dreadful, more than 20-year ordeal for the people involved. I think in a way the debates we're having about AI hallucination, I hope are socialising with people that you need to just go a bit further than the initial report. But one of the things that came up in this case with the football match is that there's a sort of contagion. So if other people refer to the report, then the AI will become more and more confident in this hallucination. It sort of redoubles the hallucination. I guess it is all sort of part of, well, we have to maintain our critical faculties. We have to still be aware that there is this, that the information might be wrong, just as we are in search.
No, I think West Midlands Police certainly are going to be looking carefully at any reliance upon AI. I would imagine in the future, though everybody is stretched, thinking about another kind of ban, it's actually the responsibility of the AI algorithm providers themselves as we move on to the what we call the undressing trend, this row that has begun where users have found that Grok's image generation tool, which is an amazing piece of software that can kind of generate images based upon what we call prompt cues from users, sort of entering a prompt, basically asking a question of AI. And it's been unbelievable, some of the results in that, but they're actually asking them to create abusive images of women that they know, either undressing them and more pernicious, the Internet Watch Foundation is reporting finding criminals sexualized images of children. I think even talking about that on this podcast, we're going to have to rewrite that sentence that we've got, because it's so, but you may not be able to see, Nathan, the sort of output of these algorithms, but you have some view, do you not, as a service provider, of the prompts of what people are asking the algorithms to produce, do we not?
I think that's a really interesting question, and I'm not sure how much the providers are able to see what's being prompted for. And I think that comes down to a privacy and security policies within those kind of chatbot organizations, because a lot of people trust those chatbots with their medical information. They're asking them medical advice, financial advice. And so I don't know how much they actually see the raw prompts in terms of what people are typing in. Maybe from an X point of view, that might be slightly different. But
so like pattern matching, where they're not really reading your stuff, but they're looking for patterns.
And they may be able to do some matching with, that output was generated from that hash of content, and they might be able to do some,
Anyway, I'm using AI all the time. I'm entering prompts in, usually about podcasty stuff, holiday stuff, luggage, vehicles, electric bikes, all the things I'm interested in. I would never enter, asking for this sort of output. But when we start getting into hallucinations, if people are actually monitoring my prompts and input, with X, we've got a partial retreat now, where X is actually saying, no, we are using, quotes, technological measures to block Grok from editing images of real people in bikinis or underwear, and implementing geo-blocking, so to particularly emphasise that in the UK. What's the chance of them coming up with a phantom prompt that they might have thought they got from me?
Well, yeah, I think that the opportunity for mistakes is there. The technical measures, which is a nice loose term, could really mean anything. Yeah. But like you, I think, and recalling our brilliant conversation with Manny a few weeks ago, who was saying, the whole of their business is about detecting AI-generated content, and particularly in news, that it's really become impossible for people to to see
Yeah.
the difference, and it's never going to be as bad as it is now, so it's only going to get more and more difficult. So of course, we're all thinking you have to go back to the prompts. That's really where you can be absolutely sure that this is a deliberate thing. But going back to the prompts is really complex because there's privacy issues, there's security issues, and I think that there's a user trust issue. Like, we are asking these things like we ask search engines our intimate thoughts. It's like a drilling a hole right into your brain and getting your thoughts, your worries about your health issues, your worries about anything. So yeah, it's a very complex issue, but it is an example of the Online Safety Act actually being popular for a change, or at least amongst women, I would say, in this country, because personally I find it a really horrible idea, and I can really imagine the damage and harm that it does to women who experience this.
I was just going to just quickly add, I think if these AI bots want to offer services that allow the manipulation of images, then they should have better know your customer, so that they guarantee that you can only alter images of the person whose account it is.
Right. So
of yourself.
I'm interested in this point. The rhetoric has increased, Nathan, and Elon Musk is calling the UK government fascist and a prison island, and claiming it's an excuse for state censorship, whilst at the same time instructing his techies to sort of take this down. This has got to stop. This thing about a paywall move and know your customer, I think what they're doing is they're restricting Grok's image features to paid subscribers only.
Sure.
I'm not sure that
I think
the
there's been
government's...
some movement in that over the last few days. I think that they're no longer doing that.
Right, I'm right. Okay, the AI has come up with a phantom latest status for me, calling
It's been a very fast-moving situation.
I think, but we've seen in a lot of other areas in response to online abuse of assets online, this shift of like allowing the stuff that's more dangerous only for paid subscribers. And I presume that, Nathan, is because if you're paying for services, you're going through more of the what you call know your customer.
Yeah, there's more
That's a great
identity
point.
checks, there's more verification checks to understand who the account owner is. And I think if someone does want to start manipulating images, then it should be of themselves only and not of other people. And the only way you can do that is to verify that the image that they're asking to manipulate is of themselves.
You're going to see some pretty...
And it's like, but this to me also brings me back to there are some brilliant surveys. Is it by Stack Social? I can't remember who does it, but they do a global Stack Overflow. They do a survey of programmers every year. And the vast majority are male, and the vast majority are in their 20s. And the sophistication of making a program like this is a lot of effort that's been made here.
Yeah.
Whereas actually getting basic tools for women to say monitor their menstrual cycle or do things towards women's health, too difficult, too boring.
Yes.
And I think that there's a kind of a structural issue here about who is actually doing the programming, who is making these priorities, and why is it a priority to be able to undress women?
Yes.
This is a topic that's going to roll and roll. I'm fascinated by Nathan's engineering solution. I'm Lucian Taylor-Swift, and I will be exploring options to run the algorithm, the Grok algorithm, against only myself. We are at the end of the main topic, which is fascinating. It's now time for our guilty pleasure online. Beautifully done. This is just a bit of fun we like to do each week, is asking people what they're indulging in online. It triggers all sorts of things. Nathan, we've dragged you onto this today because it's about AI. What is your guilty pleasure online?
So I prompted AI to give me some suggestions. What's funny though is that the suggestions it gave me were very close to what I should be saying as my guilty pleasure anyway.
That's spooky.
That's
Yeah,
spooky,
it is
isn't
kind
it?
of spooky. but yeah, which is really spooky because I've never the things that I've asked, chats has never been related to those, but it just knows. But the one that I picked that is probably most relevant is this kind of obsession with. We've recently been looking at houses, possibly moving house, and so when you kind of start down that rabbit hole, it's a never-ending journey of discovery of other people's houses and how much you like them or hate them or what can I get for £10 million, you just kind of go down this rabbit hole of if I had endless budget, what would my house look like and things like that. So yeah, at the moment it's kind of exploring new houses online and either gathering ideas as to how we could better our house or if there's something else that we could move to that would be better for us.
Amazing.
So it's really a form of shopping, really.
It is, yeah, kind of very, very.
I know you've got the car you want.
Shopping.
Now you moved on. Emily, you do a bit of house browsing and flat browsing.
I do, and I completely agree with Nathan that it is a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
You sort of look up and hours have gone past, and this is often for me caused by going somewhere I like and thinking, how about if we bought a house here, which is complete fantasy, and then you start thinking, where would I like to live here? And then you look at the things that are for sale, and like you, I'm fascinated by what made people do that with that
why have they done that to their
Why
house?
have they done that? And
how much would it take to put it back to something
to
normal?
put that back. Yeah.
We are at our next topic, which is the end of teen social media and why is the UK watching Australia. Emily, can you summarise what's going on here?
Australia, and we covered this on the podcast a few weeks ago, Australia has implemented a ban on social media for teenagers, I think under the age of 16. It's been very controversial because certain social media platforms have been included in this ban, and other sort of things like gaming, for example, or messaging apps have not. So it's not, when you go for a ban, it's always difficult to draw the lines around it and so on. And there are different reports of how it's been going. So on the one hand, some individual teenagers and parents are saying, God, it's really nice to have our children back, and now they're doing things like sports and their homework and not just sort of in an endless doom scroll. Whereas there's been also a lot of criticism about the patchiness of the ban and also use of VPNs to elude it. Why are we talking about it now? The UK is looking at Australia's experience and is starting to have the conversation around implementing a similar ban. What's interesting, and this I'll just close with this has cross-party support. So this is not a party political issue. It seems to be something that is more of a generational issue, I would say. Whether it's the right approach, I don't know. But I think if you talk to most parents, and I'd be really interested in Nathan's view here as a parent of young children, they're worried about the impact of social media.
Nathan, I'm interested as well in this point. Emily and I, our children are grown up. Those with children who are still under 16, I'm interested in their view of this. I mean, I'm hearing down the grapevine that children are moving away kind of for social media generally and towards socializing within gaming platforms, and Emily was saying this has been excluded from this. I presume there'd be a riot if they banned games.
Yeah, I mean there certainly would be. I mean what's interesting is we kind of have a mix in our. If I touch on the gaming first, both my boys tend to play online games quite a lot. They won't always chat with their friends through the game. They may just call them up on their mobiles, and they'll have like a group mobile, conversation while they're all playing the same game. Which to me, I thought it would make more sense to do it in the game. But anyway, that's just it. That may just be my boys and their group of friends and how they like to do it. Going back to the social media thing, I have a boy who's 12 and one that's 10. They both now got mobile phones, and we restrict we restrict them on the amount of time they can spend on them and the apps that they can use. The 12-year-old is allowed a little bit more in terms of freedom of apps as opposed to the younger my younger son, but they seem quite happy with that. They do ask us for things occasionally, but I think because we've been so transparent with them as to the reasons why we don't let them have Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat and all those things, then they seem okay with it. We still get the occasional, all my friends at school have got that and they're all messaging and whatever. But we understand kind of the threat landscape around the way that people try and groom or victimize young people on social media platforms, and that's the exposure that I've had to that has helped us try and steer them away from that for as long as possible till they're a bit older, until they can understand and see some of the pitfalls themselves. So I totally understand why 16 has been set by the Australians, and I'm very interested to see how that kind of pans out.
Emily, I'm interested in this. So the driver for this is that it was all previously focused on the Online Safety Act, which was primarily set up to regulate content, and now we've got this surge in political and public pressure and enthusiasm towards outright ban. And the key instrument for that is a high-profile amendment to the Child's Wellbeing and Schools Bill, which is currently moving through Parliament. So they're actually pulling in health and education factors. The drivers for the ban were this Grok controversy involving images of children. Parents and teachers unions and grassroots movements petitioning MPs for reasonable age proportionate boundaries. We've just been to Australia. I didn't get a sense of a riot about social media for under 16s.
No, in fact, we were staying with or seeing some of my cousins who've got teenage girls. Didn't really come up in conversation, didn't seem to be a controversial thing.
On reflection, I think they seem to have a lot of time to talk to people around them.
Yeah, they were very sort of sociable, actually. But I'm really sort of, it made me think about, this is a new phenomenon for parents, and I'm really interested in the thoughtful way that you and Becky have sort of approached this with your children and explained it. But I think that for too long the argument has been like, tech people saying you're stupid, and children's advocates and charities, talking about the harms to children and seeming to be opposed to each other. Let's have a think about other areas. Bans for age-related bans or restrictions are actually quite commonplace on films, alcohol, sexual activity. We recognise as societies that children are not just smaller adults. They are going through a maturing stage process, and they aren't actually able to cope with a lot of things that they will encounter in an adult's environment. And there isn't a sort of social media for children, like there is children's programming in television. So this is complicated, and it requires the input of educational experts, social workers, people who understand child development. And I think for too long they've been on the other side of the aisle from technologists, and they've all just been shouting about things because there's so much commercial stakes riding on this.
I can see and I don't think there's much pushback. We've had a straw poll in the office, and particularly those with children are we all love technology, but they seem to be, I get the feeling there's a lot of positivity about this, but the unknown cause and effects, and this sort of separation of gaming and banning gaming, the social media activity of gaming, which is, will everybody just move over to the game as a platform for because we are aware, aren't we, in our other work of harms?
Absolutely, yeah, there is, and again, the restrictions that we put on as parents for the games is, to restrict their interactions with only known friends, only known contacts.
Which you're open to, that could happen in Facebook as well, and Insta as well.
Correct.
So those controls are in there, but they weren't good enough. Are they good enough in the gaming world?
I think that's a really interesting question. I think part of the problem with, or one of the reasons why we allow them to game and interact with their friends via games as opposed to interacting via social media with their friends, is because of the nature that certain social media apps have of just turning you into a zombie in front of the screen, and just this kind of endless scroll of content that is not always what you expect or comes from your friends, but is either advertised to you or suggested to you. And so that can't be controlled as much as, gameplay. We know what kind of games they're playing, and we know the people they're talking with. Social media, you often get adverts for things that you can't control as parents.
Thank you. Another fascinating topic. So from endless scrolling, which you were talking about, to our doom scroll of the week. This is where we try and focus on things that people like to relentlessly do online as over 16-year-olds. Nathan, you're up for Doom Scroll of the Week. What's AI giving you this topic?
Okay, so another suggestion which I was guilty of was endlessly scrolling through videos of people cleaning things with like jet washers.
Oh, great.
So,
no, I love that one. That is absolutely magic.
Have you come across that, Luz?
No, but
I'm going to look for it now.
Just another one.
It's been a little while, but there definitely was a phase where I was obsessed with keeping the cars clean.
I love people's
and just
mental
jet
illness.
washing and making sure you have the right soaps and the right
yeah.
pre-washes and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I've definitely
Are you two related?
I know.
Because
Well,
probably.
I'm literally gonna just run it through AI. Give me the top 10 sort of cleaning sort of interest groups. I do know that there are lots of YouTube videos about any geeky little subject that makes you think. How do people do that?
And the thing with the algorithms is you watch something for 2 seconds and you get more of it.
But have you noticed these sites? And I haven't looked at cleaning sites. What I have been looking at is studio lighting equipment mounting racks on ceilings, believe it or not. But you go to these sites and you think, how can anybody possibly be interested in this at all?
Yeah.
And they've got 14,000 followers.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's incredible. You some of the content that gets served up, and you look at how many likes that particular piece of content has had, and you think that person's literally just fallen over or something, and they've got like 1 million likes.
Emily, cleaning sites, has that given you inspiration to go and hunt?
I just have a completely different world on my social media. So I have miniature Dachshunds, loads and loads of movie star short interviews. I had loads on the Golden Globes and everything like that. That's what I get served, and it is true. Like I thought, anytime I've gone, that video of miniature Dachshunds is really cute, and then suddenly I've got 1 million miniature Dachshund videos, and
Thank you. We're nearly up. I forgot to mention at the beginning, if you are interested in this podcast or affected by any of the topics we've been talking about, please like, share, follow, comment. You can now see our sort of share links. You can also ask your smart speaker to tune in to the podcast, The Internet Seriously. We've been talking about whether we can trust AI, discussing the fictional footy match and the Grok algorithm problems for women. Also the end of teen social media. It's happened in Australia. Is it happening now in the UK?